Hello, my name is Jonathan Holland, and I'm a doctoral student in higher education at the University of Memphis. I also have 10 years of professional experience in higher education. This presentation is going to cover some concepts that I found useful and interesting this semester in my adult learning and leadership course. I found the theme of Vela's text very stimulating and interesting. How she used quantum physics, quantum thinking, as an analogy for dialogue education. It's a very interesting way to frame it. In her quantum thinking approach to education, Vela applies 6 concepts of quantum theory. This includes relatedness, in which everything is related. She uses a holistic perspective in which the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Duality, which embraces opposites and different ways of thinking. Uncertainty, in which theory in education is being applied to new and changing context. Participation, in which the observer becomes part of the observed, in which the observer changes what she or he is observing. And energy, the learner must be motivated and energized to effectively learn. In the dialogue approach, the learner should be the subject of their own learning. And in my contemplative reading and reflections, I often found myself looking back at my own experiences as an adult learner, either formally or informally. Looking back at my own experience as an educator and as a teacher, I always try to make things as simple as possible because I believe overcomplicating a concept only induces anxiety. It makes it difficult for the learner to engage. A concept I found myself really drawn to this semester was the learner learning from the other learners in the situation, in that context. So the student learning from each other, not just from the teacher, but from their own experiences and sharing those experiences with each other. In a dynamic learning environment in which there is dialogue and frequent interaction between the instructor and the students, students learn just as much from the other students where they saw things in the material that perhaps they did not see or understand things in a different way than themselves. I learned just as much from my colleagues and fellow students in the class, hearing their reactions and their reflections and examples, than I did from my own readings and my own reflections on the material. Another concept I found interesting this semester was the teacher as a resource, as a guide who takes a back seat to the learner, in which the student is the one actively engaging and taking those steps and learning by doing. It is important for the instructor to form meaningful and trusting relationships with the student. This lets the student act authentically and truthfully in the learning environment. It is important for the instructor to conduct a needs assessment with the students at the beginning of the class to see what their expectations are. That will allow the teacher to form activities in which the student will be the subject of their own learning. As a professional in higher education, I've always known the importance of having empathy for students, but I had never really connected the importance of emotion to an effective learning process. Another concept I'm drawn to this semester is praxis. This is learning through action and then reflection, and then repeating the process and adjusting as you go along. I also identify with sequence and reinforcement, which includes a learning activity that is simple and becomes complex and begins in a group setting and leads to solo action. Immediacy is important in adult learning. Adults have full lives and they don't have a lot of time to waste. So they must know that what they're learning is going to be useful to them sooner rather than later. The establishment of clear roles between learner and teacher is important in dialogue learning, but this role assignment will look different depending on the cultural context. Some instances it might be more formal and other more informal. A dialogue approach to adult learning is most effective when it is engaging, in which the student is proactive and interacting with the teacher and their fellow students. A passive student in the dialogue approach is an oxymoron. Teamwork is an important aspect of dialogue learning in adult education, and learning to work in a team is also important in all aspects of life. And to build solidarity amongst the team must celebrate and recognize their successes.